Funding for Frontline is provided by the Park Foundation, committed to raising public awareness. Frontline is made possible by contributions to your PBS station from viewers like you. Thank you.
Tonight on Frontline,
I decided to visit the land of my enemy.
filmmaker Marian Marzynski has spent his life remembering.
My family was wiped out by the Germans.
But for most Germans born during or just after the war, the reality of the Holocaust is still unspoken.
Is that true that in German family you cannot ask how many people you killed?
No,
You cannot.
there will be no answer.
But how does the new generation of Germans live with the crimes of the past?
People my age don't meet any Jews. They have no problem with the Holocaust because it doesn't exist in their life.
Tonight on Frontline, a personal journey, a Jew among the Germans.
"60 years after the end of World War II, European trains still mark memories. Good trains, bad trains, nightmarish trains with a destination marked death. My train to Berlin is about to cross the Polish-German border. It was here where the war began in 1939. I was 8 when the war was over. A Jewish child in Poland, I was among the few members of my family who survived the Holocaust. For all the years after the war, I've been avoiding Germany. Now I find myself in the land of the enemy. I carry with me the baggage of bad memories. The German language alone strikes discord to my ear. Germany has fully recovered from the horror of the war, at least economically. Berlin, destroyed by the Allies, has become again the capital of United Germany and a huge construction site. I have come after learning that a memorial to the 6 million murdered Jews of Europe will be built here. On this no man's land, where circus troops pitch their tents, the German government wants to erect its ultimate apology for the crimes against the Jews. Hitler's government once stood on this side. I am staying in a small hotel run by a Jewish woman my age who escaped Nazi Germany and hid in Denmark. Her uncle, who owned this apartment, was killed in the Holocaust. When I told her about my quest, she warned me to stay away from this subject. Anti-Semitism is still alive in Germany, she said. Looking at the entries to the architectural competition for the memorial, I am frightened of how cold they are. Their sharp edges, resembling Nazi-era architecture, and their abstract symbols, like the German swastika and the Star of David. I called the city architect coordinating the project. His name is Günter Schlusse.
Where is the front of the monument? Not the side.
The front is open to the artist's design.
He's a German baby boomer. His father was too young to be in the war. That's comforting.
The surrounding of this monument gives at the same time a message of vitality, of power. They will be one of the most modern parts of Europe. So being here, won't you have these conflicting things in your head? If you put this monument in the forest,
but life,
then the reflection will be there. But here you are distracted. Are you distracted?
Yeah. No.
By the vibrating life around.
Urban life is not destructive.
Well, destructive from the monument.
No.
No?
No, I won't think so. I think it can deal with all of that. I think it can make it. Perhaps my expectations are too high, I don't know. But I think it's possible. I have some experience with what monuments can evoke and what not, you know? And they shouldn't, let's say, produce a feeling of guiltiness.
Anxiety.
Yeah.
Shouldn't.
They should not do that.
Guilt,
you know?
yes, no?
But not too much of that, because I think guiltiness is, belongs to that, but it's not forming the only part of that. What this memorial should do.
The winner of the competition was Christina Jacob Marx, a painter. She lives in a suburban villa, which once belonged to a Nazi officer who was executed for trying to assassinate Hitler.
It's a Jewish home.
Christina, hello.
Hello.
Nice to meet
Nice to meet you.
So this is a Jewish home.
It was a Jewish home, but my husband died.
Nice to meet you.
He's the architect.
Her idea was to engrave on a monumental plate of black granite the names of as many millions of murdered Jews as could be found.
In granite,
My first reaction is that no Jew would want to be again on a German roster.
Every name accuses a German or a visitor or public of killing. It is extremely strong things that may lead people to avoid this place.
maybe, but our intention was to give this feeling, to give people the chance to feel like that.
Maybe the shock is so big that they have the intention. This thing should never happen in any case, whatever.
It's a perpetuation of guilt. Is that what you want?
No. It's not a question of feeling guilty. Not at all. It's a question of taking responsibility.
And in between you have...
I was not the only one with misgivings about this design. The German Chancellor decided against it and announced a second competition, this time limited to a few invited artists. Dr. James Young, who studied Holocaust memorials around the world, came to Berlin to be a judge of the second competition.
The government moving back to Berlin can't move back here innocently. It has to move back with the reminder of what happened the last time the German government was located in Berlin, last time being the Nazi Reich. Countries don't build monuments to their crimes. In America, we have not built monuments to the genocide of Native Americans.
Exactly.
Yeah, we don't. That's not how countries rebuild themselves. I mean, that's why these two questions come up over and over again. How do perpetrators, former perpetrators, mourn their victims? Doesn't happen. And how do you reunite a divided country, in this case a divided city, on the bedrock memory of national crimes?
Who said that they should never build a monument but discuss it forever? You did? You said that? You still think so?
In some ways I do, and it's a terrible thing to say now that I'm inside the process, but I'm still not sure that there should be a single, German Holocaust memorial.
James Young takes me to the place where a few years before I was born, the Holocaust started. Here, the Nazis burned Jewish books. He wanted to show me how an artist commemorated, underground, a library with empty bookshelves. He likes small memorials that people encounter by chance, forcing reflection. There are many such sites in Germany built by communities, and they are deeply moving. Like this one, empty benches where a synagogue once stood. But the memorial ground is anonymous. It is political ground. I am meeting Danny Caravan, an Israeli sculptor, invited to be part of the second memorial design competition.
Look, you see here, those people will look from the window when I will come here to stay here and to meditate with my feelings. Here the embassy will be. Here will be another bank.
They will be too comfortable. You don't want to.
No,
because they will be too comfortable.
I don't know what they will be. I don't care about them because I will not buy apartment there, so it's not my problem. It's their problem. I will stay here. I will come here to see here. I come with my children. I will come with my friends, and I'll stay here. And somebody is looking at me from the window, how I behave.
And say, look at this Jew here.
Exactly.
He came. Look at
Maybe
him.
even with
vernacular, right?
To see exactly how I'm crying or not crying, if I'm laughing, not laughing. So I said to myself, okay, so it's not for me. The side has a kind
At
of...
first, he didn't want to build anything.
Very strange form.
Yeah.
Yes? So I look at the sky and I said, okay, look, there is a Magen David here.
Huh.
Yes, it is there.
Uh-huh.
Yeah? So I said, I have a Magen David, so what should I do with Magen David? Or maybe I will put flowers inside, yellow flowers. And the moment I had the yellow flowers, everything was clear for me. And I said, this should be. And then I had to find a way. I mean, I cut it here, and I cut it here. I make the possibility to people to go around, to come here. The flowers will be here.
Very soon, the image of flowers will be shattered. The security guard interrupts our filming, telling us that the city could not have given us permission because he had received no orders.
You see, because of those people, they will not let it to be built. Because they don't want it to be built. It will be another discussion, another competition. It will be somebody that will be against it, and this will happen.
I suddenly realized this is Germany. We are the Jews.
I hate monuments. I'm fed up of all this iron.
The decision to come on this journey to Berlin had started back in my home in Chicago, when my children came to visit my wife and me. They had come to cheer me on. I was about to be interviewed for the Holocaust Survivors Project.
The philosophical question is, should I wear something like this or like this, or generally, should I tell the story of my life? There are historical consequences, you realize that?
Of what you wear?
The interview is in your home. You're supposed to be relaxed. I don't think you should wear a marinarka.
Right. Tell your story like this.
My children had heard bits and pieces of my survival story. Now I was going to tell it all, and I was worrying about my legacy. But I also found myself wondering if for my children, the word German would always be associated with the word murderer.
The survivor is Marian Marzynski. The interview is being conducted in Chicago, Illinois, the United States of America, and we are conducting the interview in English. Would you tell us what your name at birth was?
My name was Marian Kushner, Kushner. My grandfather was killed almost the day the German invaded Lęczyca. They were pointed out by neighbors that he is the wealthy Jew who has gold. He was a dentist and he had gold, of course, gold teeth. He was killed on the market square and his wife died of a heart attack within 2 weeks. They were the very first casualty of Holocaust. And this is really a point of view of a little boy. It's mainly the feelings of bodies and legs and shoes and Germans and dogs and shout. It's really a very fragmented. And the hours of waiting and waiting and fear and fear and fear. You see, I was part of a dangerous game, and I knew there will be the moment of joy in the house, and the new danger will come. The anticipation of danger, that's what I learned. And until today, I think it's in me.
In 1942, hiding on the Christian side of Warsaw, I was riding a trolley with my Polish guardian. A German officer sat me on his lap and said, "Nice boy." I was choked by fear. Today, I would like to achieve what my lost relatives could not, to feel safe among the Germans. This is what my father would wish for me as my only possible revenge for his senseless death. Dieter Ronte, the director of the Art Museum in Bonn, is one of the 5 judges for the second competition.
I believe that these things can be transported only by an artwork as a vehicle.
In Germany, he is what's called the second generation.
Is that true that in German family you cannot ask father, daddy, how many people you killed?
No.
You cannot.
There will be no answer.
Or the kids will not ask, or the parents will not answer?
The parents will not answer.
The kids ask always nasty questions.
Yes, but the parents go away to glorifying a very bad time they had, because this time is a problem for them.
So you recall actually you asking those questions?
Yes, but I never had an answer from my father. I remember that we once went through Greece, and he said, "Let's go over there." I said, "No, I don't go there." And he never said more. Something was happening in the war. I don't know what.
But you knew. You know now.
No, he never told me.
I think it's mind-blowing to me that you love your father, and yet you know that he did something that you'll never do. You are so violently opposed to, right?
Yes.
And then you have to separate the two.
Yes. Isn't it what we learn all during our life, to separate things, to survive?
And he had a practice.
Another participant in the competition is Gesine Weinmiller, a young star architect who has drawn many corporate high-rises in Germany, but never designed a monument.
The problem is that we have no more Jews here in Germany. And we don't have the possibility, nearly. There are a few here in Berlin, a lot of in Berlin who speaks Russian, and when you go to the synagogue, there are very few German-spoken Jews, and I think the people who have my age, they don't meet any Jews, and so they have no problem with the Holocaust because it doesn't exist in their life.
Gesine is 34 and part of what is known as the third generation, the children of Germans born after the war. During the 60s, the second generation attacked their own parents and grandparents for their Nazi past.
You see, this point.
But Gesine's childhood was protected. There were no family horror stories told.
And then you go there, and this.
For her, the Holocaust has to be experienced through symbols.
So draw me with your finger the Star of David.
Here? No. Here, 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 here. That's one.
Uh-huh.
And there,
For my children, her peers, the Holocaust is nothing but personal.
There is missing.
I've heard of a newly published book, a kind of Holocaust manifesto of the German third generation. It was written by a group of students from the prestigious Humboldt University and called Nobody Asked Us.
Was ist damit gemeint? Und zweitens, welches ist die Grundthematik für das ganze Buch, die diesen Titel rechtfertigt?
They say that nobody asked them how the Holocaust should be remembered. Our understanding of the Holocaust, I've read in the book, should not be a forced confrontation with pictures from Auschwitz. It must be based on our personal questions about morality, ethics, and the human condition. Wolfgang Thierse disagrees. He is the president of the German parliament and the driving force behind the Berlin Memorial. He says you cannot entrust memory simply to individuals. There has to be an institutional response in the name of all Germans. But the children argue back to their parents. Force it on us, and you run the risk of generations forgetting the Holocaust altogether. On the campus of Humboldt University, I am meeting the editor of the book. He is a 24-year-old philosophy major, Jens Piper.
I mean, my parents were born in '45, so I couldn't ask them what happened. And my grandmother was 25 when the war was over, and she was just a nurse in the countryside. And my grandfather, who died when I was 12 or so, he was in the war, in the Wehrmacht, and he was totally against it, but he couldn't help but do it.
Right.
And now, in the last years, after I started working on the subject, people tell me, like relatives and people close to me, tell me other stories. So when I was in school, I wouldn't feel about it like there was a big thing. I mean, there were no Jews in my class. There were no foreigners in my class. There were not even some in my...
So it was in a sense a horror fiction story. It was horror fiction story. It wasn't a reality story. It wasn't like that you said, how come that people who are German like myself could do it? I mean, it wasn't this in your head. It wasn't that people of your DNA could do it, right?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, that was what we talked about, and that was what made bad dreams in night. That because I'm German, I imagined myself, and I couldn't help but do it, and others, boys in my class too, but think, well, I could be the capo, or I could be the chief of the KZ. I could be Mr. Hess.
Coming to Germany still is for me a kind of catharsis. You know, I want to be here, but I don't want to be here. So I usually am here enthusiastic, and then I run away after 2 days. I've never been in Germany for more than 3 days. I have an aversion to language, which I am overcoming now, because I would like to learn. I would like to, I have to do something for myself also to liberate myself from the phobia. Because this phobia is not good in order for me to understand. You cannot understand. So I would like to be relaxed, but I'm working on it. I learned a few things about his family. His father, a general in the German army, is proud that today's soldiers can refuse to follow orders that seem morally wrong to them. But when I asked Jens if I could film his parents, he checked with them and they said no.
Die Grundlage schaffen, die Position der dritten Generation so klar.
There are 8 authors of the book, ages 23 to 33.
I am listening to you and I do not hear the word guilt. And I know that everything that has been associated with Germans and Germany was always around guilt. Why are you not using the word?
You can't really feel for your grandparents' guilt or anything. You can't really feel responsible for that type of thing because those are different people, even though maybe they are Germans and even though they belong to your family. It's something that you might negotiate with them in terms of why did you do this or something, but it's just not been you yourself who actually did this.
We don't use the word guilt, but we talk about feeling awkward, going abroad as a German. And you're also referring to the Holocaust.
So if this book is not a question of guilt, what will be in German? Eine Frage
der Schuld.
Schuld. This book is eine Frage of what?
We're replacing the meaning of guilt in society by memory, saying guilt is just a constant feeling that you have. It's giving attention to something that's in your head. It's a feeling. And the way we're thinking about the Holocaust is by remembering it.
Johannes Schwarz, one of the authors, is not Jewish, but he's getting a doctorate in Jewish studies. He brings me to the suburban villa in Wannsee, where Adolf Eichmann and his Nazi bosses formulated their plan for the extermination of the Jews.
Die SS, die Lager führt, die sagt jetzt diesen jüdischen
School
Männern,
teachers hold workshops here.
würde sie freilassen. Jetzt habt ihr vielleicht gelesen.
The students are in the room called the Warsaw Ghetto. I will tell them I was there.
I was in 1941, I was 4 years old, and I was brought with my family to the Warsaw Ghetto. We live about 12 people in one room from all the family around because we left our apartment on the other side of Warsaw. What I remember as a child, that we have to continuously move from one apartment to another. So we will be going on the street with a wooden wagon with our belongings, and I was walking behind it.
I have a question. Was it the same scene like in these pictures you have?
Well, obviously, you know, those are very poor children.
I tell them that my family has some means to survive in the ghetto, but when all Jewish children were rounded up to be sent to the death camps, my father had me smuggled to the Christian side of the city to hide there. At the age of 5, my survival depended on me keeping the secret of my Jewishness. The next day, the teacher invited me to visit her classroom.
Ich möchte mal ganz schnell einen Schüler, der nach vorne geht und den Fahrer vom Wagen hierher lotst. Wer kann das auch?
How is in German circumcision?
Beschneidung.
Do you know what circumcision is?
Beschneidung ist im Judentum?
Yeah. Are those boys circumcised?
Seid ihr beschnitten? Das ist manchmal übrigens auch bei Christen der Fall.
Are you? You are circumcised. Why are you circumcised?
Hygienic reasons.
So this is only one boy that is circumcised. Okay. Now you should know that all the Jews in the world are circumcised, and I am not. That's why I'm alive.
Ist nicht und deswegen ist am Leben.
Why?
I am alive because I am not circumcised.
And why that?
Because circumcision was a proof to Germans that I am a Jew. No Polish man is circumcised.
Zeichen, Symbol für das Judentum und für die Moslems.
Why did you not have yourself circumcised after everything? Because it's a symbol for Judaism. So this is
I'm not religious.
Ist nicht religiös.
I'm Jewish, but I'm not religious.
Ob Hass gegenüber den Leuten fühlt, die ihm das
To this daughter of Turkish immigrants in Germany, racism is still around in the world.
Das gibt's bestimmt in Amerika auch genauso.
She asks me if I hate Germans.
Nazis und so.
Hate is a non-creative concept. Hate means that the things are frozen, that you don't believe in any change. If you don't believe in change in human, what makes sense to live even?
What is your understanding of the Holocaust? I ask the students.
Und ich finde, man sollte es immer wieder Schülern beibringen und lernen, was damals war, damit sowas nie wieder sowas Schlimmes passieren sollte.
Aber man sollte genauso auch über den Vietnamkrieg reden, genauso viel, weil die Amerikaner haben genauso viele schlimme Sachen gemacht wie Deutschen.
Ja, es ist schon wichtig, dass man es erzählt, aber man sollte es nicht so überbewerten.
Was ich ja schon sagen soll, haben schon alle gesagt, was man eigentlich sagen sollte.
My mother and I survived the Holocaust, but my father could not make it on the Christian side. He looked too Jewish. And just for his face, he was killed. Johannes has invited me to his home.
Marian.
Good to see you. Well, let me tell you what's on my mind. On my mind, at the age of 65, is still the idea how it was possible that my family was wiped out and killed by the cultural civilized people called Germans. I think that my family was fantastic, that they were great people, that they were honest. And I don't want to punish anybody for this, but I would like to find in Germany people that are equally outraged by this.
What doesn't work today in schools, in Holocaust education, really is building your pedagogic concepts on the concept of guilt, or the feeling of guilt at least, that somehow as a German you're also in the following generations, you're still somehow little bit guilty for what has happened, or at least you've got to cope with this heritage.
Young generation needs to be told that you are not guilty, boys and girls. You think so?
Yes.
And this way, they will be more interested in studying history and understanding everything. Yes?
Simply put, yes. Das Licht an.
I wanted to hear a lullaby in German. As I join a neighborhood rally against a neo-Nazi politician, I think of Johannes. His intentions are good, but can he and his generation preserve the memory? I understand their discomfort with guilt, but without that emotion, isn't the story of German evil likely to be forgotten? Or could there be such a thing as good guilt? It would make it easier for everyone.
Brandenburger Tor, the Reichstag.
The German government has taken the business of memory into its own hands. Professor James Young shows me the new competition's entries. He starts with the acclaimed architect from New York, Peter Eisenman.
There will never be another memorial like this. It's truly unique. And in addition, it will be dangerous.
So now I'm walking. Your project is built.
Yes. Yes.
What am I seeing? What am I feeling?
You're seeing nothing. That's the interesting thing.
It's all in the ground?
No, it starts like in the sidewalk. There are little slabs. Each slab is 92 centimeters. There are 4,000. They're all lined up in rows like the Nazis.
Yes.
The whole idea is rationality gone mad. Entropy entering rationality. You go and walk in it, and you will feel uncertain, you know? These things are tilting. I don't know where I'm going. Am I going to get lost? I'm alone. I can't hold anybody's hand. And that, when they get done, was what it felt like to be a Jew in Germany in the 30s. That's all. Basta. That's the monument. We want to get over this idea of the Jew as other. So my monument is both a memory and a hope for the future. And it's to bring the Jewish cemetery into the everyday experience of the German in the middle of the city, but also it could be a series of, if you look at them, they're foundation stones for a new society.
Are you saying that through this monument, the Germans will accept Jews as living among them, but they will be dead Jews?
No, and also, no.
Dead Jews.
No, not only dead Jews, but the idea of the potential for you know what a gravestone is? It's the
Johann Gertz, a German living in Paris, wants to build an educational center under banners reading Warum, why, repeated in the 31 languages spoken by Jewish victims of World War II. The center would collect visitors' answers to why. A robot would engrave them in the concrete ground, creating a public interaction with the subject of the Holocaust.
It is a place that relies on the quality of what every human being going there puts into the ground. And that means a place of democracy. It's a place that gives hold to democracy. And so the Shoah becomes a metaphor, not only for the Shoah, but for that you cannot rule without people.
Gertz is convinced his idea won't win.
So you are angry.
I'm kind of angry, which is my usual state.
You are angry because you think that they are not gutsy.
They don't know what to do. They don't know, they just want to read essays and they want to write essays and they want to be on the good side, like in a museum. They don't want to get dirt on their fingers, and that's like it is.
They seem to tell, show me responsibility, show me guilt, make me uncomfortable. Sometimes I think even that they want a masochistic monument, do they?
Yes, but then they put a flower pot. Because they say art is art. They say whatever happens, Auschwitz made us terrible and has never left us since, but art is art. So they have a kind of aspirin that they throw into the water and it must cure, and I don't believe in that. The most remarkable thing about monuments is that nobody sees them. And that's in the best tradition of all that, you see? This is implosion.
Right.
There's big
you build
masses,
it and you are true, right?
Yeah, and nobody sees them anymore.
We honored those two. Who are those two guys?
Well, we know, I guess.
Who are those two guys?
This is Marx and Engels.
This is Marx and Engels?
Yeah, I would say so.
That's right.
Gertz does not believe art can express the content of the Holocaust. What is needed is education. I wish he would win. The other artists did what they were expected to do. They searched for a Holocaust metaphor, stone walls forming bookends to represent the Jewish devotion to learning, the Holocaust symbolized by the destruction of human habitat, by the entrapment of spirit, by the void in civilization and culture, and pure art, a huge figure of a Jewish mother with amputated hands. The German Bundestag has returned to Berlin. In the restored Reichstag, where Hitler once had his parliament, they hold their annual session commemorating the Holocaust. Over the years, the German government has paid substantial reparations to Holocaust survivors. Now they want to settle their moral account with a memorial right outside the doors of their parliament. Spring, the expression of free spirit on what remains of the Berlin Wall, the memorial of the Cold War. In the second half of the 20th century, it has not been easy to be German. I am back.
From Hungary.
And what's this?
That's special. Then we have in former uniforms, we have had those.
Finally, I find a German soldier I can like.
What's the problem, Thomas?
My American friend Thomas Merrill said he would stop in Berlin on the way to visit his mother in Munich. I told him I need an advisor to help me sort out my German experience. He's a doctor, not a therapist, but for me, he has all the right credentials. He's a Jew born in Germany after the war. His Jewish Hungarian mother survived a concentration camp as a young girl. His father was a survivor who lost his first wife and 2 sons. He's a true friend. I call him Tomaszek. He calls me Maryś, my childhood name. He sees me as one of his older half-brothers he lost in the Holocaust. But unlike me, who by a sheer miracle survived the war and celebrated life in post-war Poland, he was a cynical Jewish boy growing up among perpetrators. He tells me about the incident which was the last straw before his decision to leave Germany and go to America.
We were all sitting in the clinic where I worked, which was at the university. There were about between 20 and 30 physicians. And one of the days we had lunch, he said, let's say Dr. Rappaport from the United States was here, and he gave a speech about this and gave a talk. Can you imagine what his honorarium was? Well, no, so they say $10,000, typical for those Hebrews. And I was just eating my soup, and I almost choked. And I was looking, did I hear this right? And then it took also some courage, because I was at the other end of the table. And I said, what the hell do you mean? These are the usual prejudice that I can't stand listening to anymore.
How did he know that you were Jew?
Everybody knew.
When Thomas grew up in Germany, there were no more than 20,000 Holocaust survivors living here. Now they say 250,000 Jews live here, most of them in Berlin. In the past 25 years, waves of Jewish immigrants were coming from Russia. It is a well-known secret that to flee Soviet communism, some of them fabricated their Jewish origin. Thomas blames this new Jewish community for what he calls the syndrome of the unknown Jew. If young Germans want to look for a personal experience with Jews to understand the meaning of the Holocaust, these new German Jews are unlikely to give it to them. Their peace of mind depends on avoiding a confrontation. We are visiting another institution of memory. The Jewish Museum of Berlin was designed by the son of Holocaust survivors, Daniel Libeskind. Libeskind has drawn a building which was reminiscent of the war, a wounded structure evoking German crimes against the Jews. The building was erected before the city decided what should be inside the museum, and then a controversy erupted. How to tell the story of the lives of German Jews under such a shadow of death? The safe solution was not to focus on the Holocaust. In his spare time, Johannes Schwartz is a tour guide here.
Das ist super schwer, dieses Brot.
The idea was that Jews no longer live in Germany and their religion has been forgotten.
Das ist wie Stein, Achtung. Genau, ein Mondzopf, eine ganz typische Challah auf Hebräisch. Und davon brauchen Sie aber auch zwei eigentlich. Gebetsschal finden, genau. Sie können ihn auch also gerne noch rumgeben erstmal. Das ist jetzt eine Billigversion.
So Johannes will explain the Torah, the way Jews behave in the synagogue, the way they celebrate Shabbat, what they do or do not eat, how they marry each other, and how they circumcise their boys.
Über das Gesicht. Und sehen Sie, was es hier geschieht? Also die ersten Buchstaben kommen geflogen. Glatt, genau. Dann sehen Sie, da kommen jetzt dann die Buchstaben geflogen. Nur die Tora ist heilig. Und hier auf unserem Schabbatdeckchen.
I imagine myself stepping forward and saying, I come from 2 generations of non-religious Jews. I don't do the rituals. So how do I fit your picture? I won't embarrass Johannes. I will ask him later. A labyrinth of granite columns is the only place to contemplate Jewish death. On the way out, some visitors stop by here, others don't. Thomas, who was introduced to Judaism by his Orthodox father, worries that reducing Jewish life to its rituals runs the danger of reinforcing its stereotypes.
Wenn das Stereotyp stimmen würde, würde das eine Rechtfertigung zur Vernichtung geben? Und das ist die Frage.
Both Thomas and I, we have a little obsession. This obsession is called anti-Semitism. When we talk about Jews, we really talk about anti-Semitism. So when we come to Germany to make friends with people who obviously are not anti-Semites, or even they love Jews or they knowledgeable about Jews, we worry if this what they saying or they disseminate or they teach at schools, will this remove anti-Semitism? And we are impatient. We would like to have effect now.
First of all, it's no Holocaust museum here. It tries to counterbalance the picture. Youngsters get in Germany in schools today about Jews, the always persecuted and murdered and so on. This one shows there's a much richer history and longer history, richer culture of Jewish life in Germany, almost 2,000 years, although it's wrong that they write German Jewish history.
I have two children, they are 12 and 14, and there is compulsory Holocaust education in the United States. And it is something that is very unpleasant for them, but you need to be prepared for that, prepared for the culmination of the Holocaust. You have to prepare from a very early age on.
I agree.
To understand and to graduate, to see the brutality and the annihilation that will ensue if certain steps are not taken in human education.
But don't overdo it. I mean,
No, you cannot overdo it. I agree with him. You cannot overdo it. You have to do it right.
Any anti-Semite coming here won't be changed in a museum like this. And that's also, we were told in our training, that you won't change anybody in here. We can just offer some knowledge.
And I'm truly moved by what you do. I'm just asking myself, is that enough? Is the wonderful museum enough to assure my children that this horrible nonsense of one people killing another will stop ever? Don't know.
The results of the second competition for the memorial to the 6 million murdered Jews of Europe are in.
You see the field of these 2,700 states.
Peter Eisenman is the winner.
The whole thing looks, as Peter has put it, like a wave of the ocean.
City architect Schlusse is ecstatic.
You know, it's a waving field.
The memorial is making headlines.
What does that say, this article?
The headline is, the memorial will be a thorn in the flesh.
Then ideally we should feel this?
Not necessarily. You can't feel this. Of course, it is not very pleasant to deal with the murder and of people. Yeah, it cannot be pleasant. So in that way, it should be, in a way, a little bit of pain, you know.
A little pain, not a big pain.
No, exactly.
A little pain.
A very little pain. And more, it should be, the memorial should be a piece of art.
My problem with art, especially on this scale and on this location, is that it can easily create an abstraction out of memory. Eisenman's labyrinth of concrete pillars has begun its construction. The German parliament has passed a law forbidding neo-Nazi demonstrations on the streets surrounding the memorial. Art and politics, a difficult medley. Thomas rented a car for our Sunday sightseeing of Berlin.
Was machen die an einem Sonntag in Berlin?
Was machen die an einem Sonntag in Berlin? Was machen die?
Nicht viel.
Nicht
viel.
Nicht viel?
Nicht viel.
Nicht
viel.
Nicht viel.
Nicht viel.
Nicht viel.
Good.
Which means nothing?
Not much.
We stopped at the Luftwaffe building, Hitler's Air Force Command, now a Treasury Department. This is the only relic of Nazi architecture that the East German government left intact. The other structures were destroyed. No building, no bad memory. The East German government painted over the past and created a new reality. Socialism triumphant over Nazism. Like all propaganda, it didn't change old prejudices. Weissensee, one of Europe's biggest Jewish cemeteries, was also in the former East Berlin. Recently, 27 Jewish headstones were toppled and vandalized here. Thomas got me a map with the location of the grave of my stepfather's mother, the grandmother I never knew. Before the war, she visited the Jewish German side of the Marzynski family in Berlin. She died of heart disease during her visit. As I feared, the worst has happened. My grandmother's grave was vandalized and the plate with her name is missing. Another memory erased.
I think if we would achieve peace, if I would achieve peace, I would be sitting here looking for my grandmother's grave. I don't know who we are actually. We are Hebrew, we are religious people, or we just the others who were condemned to death. And that's, to me, is my religion. The religion is Holocaust. This is the only way that I can embrace.
But that's a very negative definition of who we are.
But that's what I associate with Jews. Yeah. Believe me, if the German didn't want to leave my family, I probably will be forgetting about my past, because the idea of my father was that we should be like anybody else. That's the whole idea. We're not the others. We were Jewish, but we were not religious, so that Catholics who were not religious were making friends with us. So we thought that we had both ways. You know, I mean, my father, it was a genius, because he figured out the way for us to live in a better world. Boom. Then they started to kill us. So obviously, when I come today, this is why I'm Jewish, because we were killed.
I set out on this journey to liberate my children from the prison of my Holocaust memories. I found among their peers, young Germans, a wish to be liberated from the sins of their grandparents. I hope for them both that they will find this freedom and that they will find each other. As for myself, I wish there will be no German celebration of the end of World War II. No government-approved memorials, no finishing touches. My request to the German people would be that they create for themselves a concept of good guilt, an honorable one, and within it, a proud guardianship of memory. My father would like that.
Explore this story further at Frontline's website. There is more on Marian Marzynski's conversations with young Germans.
Do not hear the word guilt.
And his struggle to reconcile his own relationship to the German people. Video and photos of the new memorial to the murdered Jews of Europe. And the reviews. Is the long debate about it finally over? Articles on the subject of Germans and Jews, teaching the Holocaust in German schools, and the young third generation and their views on the Holocaust. Plus the chance to watch this program again online at pbs.org.
Next time on Frontline, It was Wall Street's hottest stock.
WorldCom was a gravy train for almost everybody.
And when it went under,
The hype was alive for 3 or 4 years before it burst.
ordinary investors lost billions.
They were duped.
Did Wall Street sell out America?
I was robbed, I was lied to, I was stolen from.
Who do they think they are?
The Wall Street Fix, next time on Frontline.
To order A Jew Among the Germans on videocassette or DVD, call PBS Home Video at 1-800-PLAY-PBS.
Funding for Frontline is provided by the Park Foundation, committed to raising public awareness. Frontline is made possible by contributions to your PBS station from viewers like you. Thank you.
This is PBS.